Well, hey, it's got that funk. Sorry for the poor lighting and whatever. Just walking my dogs through the forest and thinking about making a video. Occasionally I get asked as an atheist how I can describe myself as a spiritual person. And I've actually had both theists and atheists ask me this question. I had a couple of atheists say to me that the word spirituality implies some kind of belief in the supernatural or a divine consciousness or whatever. I don't necessarily think that has to be the case. I think spirituality can mean different things to different people, and almost certainly does, but not just that. I thought I'd try and describe part of what I mean. It would be impossible really to encapsulate it all off the top of my head in a single video, but I'll give you a little idea about what I mean, sort of. When I call myself a spiritual person, I'm sort of talking about myself as an entity, and by that I mean, you know, I'm not just my body, I'm also my intellect, my emotional center, my consciousness and awareness as slightly distinct from one another, my ego, everything that makes me distinct as an individual, wrapped up together, is part of the totality of it, is part of what I mean when I talk about my spirit. You know, when you see a little child or whatever, and they say, well, it's a very spirited individual, you know, he's got a lot of spirit or whatever. You know, it's that sort of energy that someone carries and exudes, which is, you know, it's partly their personality, but it's more than that. It's, you know, it's their experiences that come through, and you somehow over time seem to exude a presence. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about spirituality. And this presence exists amongst all living things in their own different ways. And I think feeling a kind of connection to those other things, whether that be through empathy or some other kind of connection, is what I myself mean when I say I feel spiritually connected to nature, for example. And I'll give you an example of how I mean that, okay? And I was walking through the forest. I walk through this forest all the time with my dogs. It's very near my house and relatively easy to get to. So anyway, and you know, it would be better if the trees were in the season with the leaves on them. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of what I got to say. Now I'm going to turn the camera around and show you a friend of mine. It is a tree. Looks like a pretty normal tree. And I really love this tree because it teaches me a lesson, okay? Now, as you can see, nothing particularly remarkable about that tree. But as we approach from the other side, you see still a perfectly normal tree. Well, almost fell over. Perfectly normal tree there. But as you can see, down here at the bottom, at the very base of that tree, at least 3/4 of it, 2/3 at the least, I suppose, you know, is definitely gone. And that tree has been horribly wounded at one point, either by some sort of disease which rotted it out, or maybe it's been burned, or both. It's a bit hard to tell now. But it still lives just fine. You know, it flourishes. You know, when the leaves are on it, you can see it's a perfectly flourishing tree like every other tree in here. But it teaches me a lesson. It speaks to me spiritually. It says, look, you know, on one side everything looks perfectly normal and fine, but on the other side there's a gaping wound, and barely clinging to the earth for sustenance, but still flourishing nonetheless. And unless you look at the totality, you don't know where the wound is, how bad it is, what effects it might be. So I learn these types of things from the tree. Even though I already know these things, it reaffirms them for me. And in that sense is what I mean when I say I feel spiritually connected to this tree. I don't mean to say that I think that I've got some kind of a spirit, like some sort of ghostly inhabitant in my body. I don't mean anything like that. I don't think the trees or the bugs or the birds or anything else have these little spirits. But, you know, the tenacity of life is what I'm talking about. It's amazing, you know, every single living thing in this forest to some degree or another depends on every other living thing in this forest. And it's those types of connections that I think of as being perfectly natural and biological. But when you understand the interconnectedness and realize that you must to some small degree be a part of it, I feel spiritually connected to nature in that sense. So I hope that helps explain it. You know, if not, let me know down below, eh? This is Got That Fuck. Thanks for watching, and may all your ups and downs be ups.